Happy Pride readers. My name is Greg. I am a booktuber, book talker, and bookstagrammer. And I'm actually going to be moderating this panel about queer joy and geek culture. So without any further ado, I just want to introduce the panel that we have today. So if everyone can just introduce themselves.
Perfect. Well, I'm Jason June, and my pronouns are he, him, and she, her. Whatever energy you're picking up on, have at it. And I'm the author of Jay's Gay Agenda, my debut queer YA rom-com that's sex positive and full of love and lust and gay shenanigans. And I'm so happy to be here.
You just had that on hand with you?
Yeah, I carry it around. It's like a constantly attached to my hip now.
Not even mad that you have a copy.
I assume that you pulled it out of your very luscious hair. It just is like a portal to another dimension, like the Lion and Steven Universe, and you just reach in, boom, finished copy.
It's my
I can carry a lot of things in here.
Oh wait, am I next? I think I am next. Yeah. We were supposed to go alphabetical, and asking gays to go alphabetical is like asking gays to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm like, can we go by logical sign or something?
You know, right? It's a nightmare. But I'm Adib Koram. I use he and him pronouns. I wrote Darius the Great is not okay, and Darius the Great deserves better.
Yes, he does.
And that's a bill for car insurance that I should take care of at some point. And I also wrote 7 Special Somethings, a Noru story. And I am super excited to be here and discuss all things geekery with this great crowd. And I definitely will pay my car insurance at some point, if anyone was worried. The bill was between the books, and I was like, that's not a book. Also, I'm an agent of chaos, if no one has noticed.
I appreciate that, because I also have my electric bill and my internet bill right behind me next to my books. Hi, I'm CD Lee. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the author of the Sidekick Squad series, which is about a group of queer teens in a corrupt taking on a corrupt government superhero agency. I've also written for Star Wars: A Certain Point of View, and I have a Queer Treasure Island retelling coming out in September. It's called A Clash of Steel. You can pre-order it now.
Do I just leave this and you get a book depository right away, or?
Does anyone else think the name book depository is ill chosen? It always makes me think of Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories.
It sounds like a super secret order of people. They're like, we're here for the book deposit. Have you contributed?
Yeah.
It's a little sus.
I want to be in your brain because I did. That's interesting. That's an interesting connection. Okay, so I'm Kiki Nguyen. I am a writer, but I facilitate the publishing of many writers. I use she, her pronouns, and I am just a gully guster gussin, geeky fan, and that's why I am an agent.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Okay. Hi, I am Julian Winters. I use he, him pronouns. I am the author of, I wish I had my books with me, but they're all back here somewhere in this chaos. But Running with Lions, How to Be Rumi Cameron, The Summer of Everything is my latest book that just came out last September. I am also the author of many a short story in anthologies that usually revolve around queer superheroes. So obviously I have a theme going for my life. And my next book is Right Where I Left You, which comes out spring 2022.
That sounds like where all of my exes left me.
Oh, Kiki, yeah, many of X have left me right where I am right now.
They said, stay here. I'm going.
Okay. I'm going to move on. Yeah.
All right. So, is everyone ready to start this panel?
Yeah.
Clearly. Lead on.
So, first of all, we're going to start off with geek culture because I feel like we have to at this point. So I think it's very important, especially for queer people, to let their geek flag fly And like, I wanted to ask each and every single one of you, what was like that one thing, be it a movie, TV show, comic book, whatever, that like really got you into this, into geek culture? For me personally, it was Teen Titans, like the original cartoon, because like it was kind of the first time I really saw like a black superhero in Cyborg. And I also really connected with Raven because like, the outsider, misunderstood, like kind of not depressing, but like just the droopy teen. And I was like, yes, I relate to that. So yeah, that was like my experience. So like, what are all yours?
I love the Teen Titans. I love that we started there too, especially just I think for me it was like superheroes in general because it's such a larger than life vehicle for storytelling. And I think as a queer person, I was just like, if I had the superpower, this would be better. But then you're also like, but what would I do with it? And there's all these implications about like identity and what does it mean to be a hero, and does having this power change you, and how does society treat you? And it's also very like in a lot of superhero media, they use powers or being a mutant as a metaphor for and it felt very like, I think in X-Men I identified so strongly. This is gonna date me as old, but in the 2000 movie, the very first X-Men movie, yes,
The best one.
Bobby is having, they like have the scene where they're talking to his parents, and like it came out in the year 2000.
No, but that was in X2 where they talked to Bobby's parents.
Right. And then like he's like, I'm a mutant. And then she's like, have you tried not being a mutant? And it felt like every line of that scene, the energy, the the moment felt like it was a coming out scene, and like the disconnect between everybody and like just X-Men in general. But that's kind of where I started feeling the geekery. And when I started writing, I'm like, oh, what if it wasn't just the metaphor? What if they were actually queer?
Iceman actually queer in the comics, though?
Yes.
Some newer ones.
Yes.
Oh, the newer
ones. And it's a very complicated, like, a little weird how it all came about, but also it's great.
Okay, so I'm going to use even an older reference, okay? We definitely, I don't know, it's a toss-up between Star Trek and Star Wars, because I did avidly watch those on television, but I will say specifically Star Wars because I used to watch the animated like Ewoks, like the VHS that they had, where it was just like a series of adventures that they would go on. And then like obviously like R2-D2 had one. So I don't know, those were like really got me. Started the
That's hilarious. This will surprise no one who has spent any amount of time with me, but Star Trek was a big awakening for me, specifically The Next Generation. I really liked imagining a future where everyone was valued and equal and got to go have adventures, which is, something that I think we're all still striving for, unless we're garbage people, in which case we don't want that, but whatever, it's fine. I also really, really liked the Transformers. I was like a little too young to like miss it when it first came on, but then there were amazing reruns and I just fell in love, which is why I have it. There we are. We're not mirrored here. There we are. I have a bunch of Transformers on my bookshelf, including Optimus Prime. Nope, there we are. My hero. I really feel like we've never had the Optimus Prime Captain Picard team up that I deserve. And so just if anyone is watching this and being like, I wish we had a Star Trek The Next Generation, Transformers Generation 1 crossover, hit me up.
There it is. I was such a huge Beast Wars fan when I was a kid. Watching the show Beast Wars was my absolute favorite TV show. And I loved the whole link of machinery and animals, which then also led to my favorite book series, which was Animorphs, which was linking like space and aliens with animals and being able to turn into any animal that you acquire their DNA. And that was like hardcore fandom for me. I would stand outside of Walden Books waiting for it to open, for the metal grate to like go up so I could run in and get my copy of Animorphs that I already had on hold waiting for me every month.
Do you ever feel like some of these properties that were about change, like Animorphs or Beast Wars, spoke to you because so much of being queer is embracing change?
Oh yeah, it's like I'm gay. Like this girl that turned into a puddle.
Right. Talking about The Secret Life of Andy Mack.
Alex Mack.
That was a show.
Oh, sorry, yes, Alex Mack, not Andy Mack.
Yeah.
Also, seminal queer programming.
Yes.
It's funny because I just saw like that someone posted on Twitter like a picture of 10 Things I Hate About You. And I was like, isn't that the girl from Alex Mack? Like, am I imagining these things? And so it's so funny that Kiki brought that up. It is hilarious the way our gay
She has the range. I did not realize it until I was rewatching that movie. And I was like, wait a minute, that's Alex Mack. Alex Mack is also Bianca.
The Meryl Streep of our time.
That's true.
Oh, mine is very the same as CB's. Is comic books is where my fandom originated. I remember sitting on many a dirty comic book store floors for hours just reading comic books. Yes, I had no shame, but it's just because like it's like the first place where I could see like a Black superhero, someone with power, or there weren't many, but they were still like queer coded heroes where I could connect. And it's funny because they'll come out queer like 10 years later. And I'm like, I knew it when I was a kid. I knew this. I knew it. But I just connected so well with that. That ability to like be the hero of your own story and exist in this space where everyone respected you and whatnot. And if they didn't respect you, it's reasons that I could relate to in my everyday life that I just loved so much. And also, I think the thing with comic books that I loved also was like when I watch TV and whatnot, often like the queer character or like the BIPOC character died or, you know, was like brutalized or whatever. And in comic books, like they could die, but they never stay dead. So it was almost like my dreams never died of being like this ultimate hero or like the star of my own reality. And so I think that's why I connect with comic books so much, because I never had that fear of no longer existing in this space.
That's poetry right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So, I thought that dirty comics thing was gonna go somewhere else. I don't know.
No,
My bad.
I did not go into the back room, Kiki, to look at those comics. Thank you. I had adult supervision.
There.
I mean, hey, if you did, no judgment. We're all human.
Thanks, Craig.
I like it. That's right.
Validate me.
Okay, so CB, you mentioned that you've written a Star Wars anthology before, and Juliet, I remember you tweeting like a while back that you wanted to write or do something with the Aqualad from Young Justice, which honestly I am all for because
real.
I love that show and I love Aqualad, and I was just like so happy when he came out. But like my question is like if any of you could like write for any other like fandom or franchise or whatever, what would it be and why?
I would so hardcore love to write teen YA Jareth from Labyrinth with David Bowie.
Oh my God.
That is the quintessentially like queer character. Watching that when I was like 5 to 7 years old and being like, I am so enamored with this person in so many ways that I can't even quite name yet. But what's happening in those tights? What's going on? Like, why?
Yeah, where do I get a pair?
Where do I get a pair? Why do I love his makeup? Why do I love his hair? Everything about him I want to know more about. And now, as an adult, in hindsight, understanding like the character of Jareth was pulling on my little gay heart and trying to bring forth parts of my queerness. So I would love to write his teen awakening.
That would be amazing. Have you ever seen it in a theater?
No.
The Alamo Drafthouse here in Kansas City did it, and it was seeing David Bowie 30 feet tall in those pants was a revelation.
I don't know. You made it sound like, you know, they did like a Rocky Horror style showing of Labyrinth, which I thought would be really cool.
That would also be amazing.
I would love that.
You should organize that.
All right. For me, this will again surprise no one. I would love to write some Star Trek. I think it'd be really fun to write like a YA Stamets and Culber from Star Trek Discovery. Really, I mean, I would love to write a YA about Tilly as well. I think she's a phenomenal character. Also, I would kind of like to write like something for Iceman now that he's out. I think that'd be really fun. I feel like in most video games, I'll play the one with ice powers, whatever video game it is. So I feel like I'm cold as ice.
Oh,
Yeah, that's me. I was trying to think of the rest of the song, and I completely just blanked on a live panel, as you all saw. That I did not know the rest of the song other than "Cold as Ice." Yep, it's just gone.
You're so warm, though.
I think that's what. That would
Thank
be
you. It's because the air
like,
conditioning is
funny part
broken in
about,
my
like,
apartment.
a dude writing that, like, or having ice powers is like it's like a clear juxtaposition of your personality.
Thank you.
You have angst in you, huh?
I think it's because I've always wanted to be like the Lucille Bluth type that can make really cold, cutting remarks to the people around me. But I'm really more of a buster that's just going to say awkward things instead.
I would love to write Jubilee.
Oh my god! Yes. Oh, I love Jubilee. The '90s X-Men Jubilee, just
Style for days.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to make fireworks when I played an arcade game.
I just feel like any there's so many characters that are just like I identified with this character when I was a kid, and like being able to like play in that sandbox and then like have your own spin on it would be such a delight.
Julian, do you have anything else?
Yeah, fuck it up, Julian.
I think I've made my desperation to write superheroes very evident on Twitter. But if no one has heard it yet, I am dying to write Wiccan and Hulkling. I want to write Aqualad and Winds. I want to write Shatterstar and Richter. Right now, my obsession right now is Prodigy from Young X-Men, and Speed, which is Scarlet Witch, is one of her twin sons. I really want to write that just because I'm just so desperate to write a queer Black superhero who has this incredible power that he, on one hand, really appreciates and really, it's like too much. Sometimes I feel that's what it's like to exist in a of like being queer, where sometimes it's like I really love the person that but sometimes it's so much on me that I just want to exist. And that's a lot of things that he goes through in the comic book. So that would be really fun. On top of the fact that Speed is like stupid funny, and I just love to write humor. So great for me. I
want that book from you.
Mm-hmm. I would 1,000% read it. I like need it right now. I want to time travel to the future where it exists, and like.
Right. Also, spoiler alert! But did Prodigy ever get his powers back?
And the Wi-Fi is back.
No!
Oh no!
This is an attack.
Oh my god!
This is an attack.
I'll check the Wikipedia.
See, this is why Al Gore should not have never had no type of power in any of this.
I think the problem is that Republicans are jamming the tubes.
Okay, Reddit.
Did you just call me Reddit?
Yes, I did. Julian,
I have never in my life ever been so seen and offended at the same time. Can't believe you're going to treat me that way on Al Gore's internet.
Right. Just one of those lesbians. Snap.
Right.
This is like, it sounds like a cartoon supervillain from Captain Planet. It's like, I'm sitting in your internet. Like,
I know, right?
Disrupting your feed.
This is such MLM WLW hostility.
Oh my god, yes.
There's no solidarity here, only hostility.
That's the energy with like Ronnie and in Schitt's Creek with
Ronnie and Patrick.
Yes, Ronnie and Patrick. It's MLM WW. It's this tension, this hostility. Like, we're both queer, but we're both like,
My favorite is when Moira got asked to go and to campaign, and she thought it was a lesbian meeting, but it was a small business owners meeting.
Yes.
I fully support the small business owner community. Oh God.
Oh,
Actually, I would love to write a YA Moira Rose someday.
What?
Like
Can I
a Moira
answer?
Rose origin story.
Oh, but oops.
That would be
No,
amazing.
sorry, Kiki.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up on y'all, babies, because I love mecha anime. So I feel like I would love to write like a Full Metal Alchemist with Negroes in it, and a bunch of dykes, and that's just how we're gonna roll,
I would like to see the Netflix adaptation of this.
right? Maybe. I don't know.
Let's just put this energy out into the world
Right.
that someone is going to
Get
write
that
this
on
and submit it to
Crunchyroll
you.
tomorrow.
Manifesting.
I mean, we kind of are putting this energy out in the world because like this is being recorded. So
Exactly.
Great point.
Right.
Let it be known, universe, that
Right.
Kiki Nguyen is
fully
requesting this
documented.
manuscript.
All right.
They can't
Disney's
avoid us
gonna-
even if they want to.
Disney's
Take
going to
that.
watch this panel and then immediately block all of us.
Well, they can block themselves in their expensive ass streaming app.
Right. It's true. On the other hand, I do pay yearly for Paramount Plus purely to get new Star Trek content. So who am I to judge? I haven't watched a single other thing on the app. Only the Star Trek.
That's
I watched the
amazing.
SpongeBob movie on Paramount Plus. You're
Oh,
welcome, Viacom.
Oh, is there such a thing? I didn't know there was one.
It's
SpongeBob
really
is
good.
one of those things that I just like. I missed. I was a little too old when it first came out, and I just like never got.
You're never too old for SpongeBob.
No, but I've tried, and I'm just like, this doesn't do anything for me.
I'm
Okay,
confused.
fair.
He is like, oh, I'm dating myself, X-Men 2000. Adib's like, I'm so young. I'm confused. What is young and what is old?
I think, first of all, math is a lie, age is a concept, and time has no
Yeah.
meaning. I was
Right.
born in 84, if that helps any. So, like, I missed when, I was literally in diapers, like, when the original Transformers cartoon came out. But
And
then
when
by, like, the
Thundercats
early
was
90s,
alive.
when I was
You were
trying to
alive when
become, like,
Thundercats was airing originally, right?
Thundercats? Wait, what?
I was.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
Yes.
I also missed Thundercats.
I don't think you're a geek then. Sorry, my bad. You gotta go.
Okay.
Thundercats.
Suggestion noted and ignored.
Queer how?
Yeah, I feel like we're getting off track.
Oh, no.
That's our fault, Greg. Sorry.
But
There's no more
There is no track.
No more
There
track.
No, we can't slow the bus down now. We just have to slam the accelerator harder. That's a speed reference.
I know. I'm old enough for that one too.
I'm also old enough for
I'm
that one.
not.
I haven't seen it in forever, though. I love Keanu Reeves, though, and
I
Sandra
watched
Bullock.
it the other night.
You know what? Miss Congeniality was a true queer awakening film for me.
Mm.
It was so wholesome.
It was so, and I loved Michael Caine's character.
He's so good. That was the first thing I saw Michael Caine in. And then, like, later when I saw him in Batman, I was just like, but why isn't he asking Bruce to, like, tuck in his buttocks?
I'm sorry, if you haven't seen him in Muppet Christmas Carol, though, you owe it to yourself.
Which one is Michael Caine? Is it the love interest? Is Congeniality?
No, that's
No,
Benjamin
Michael Caine-
Pratt.
The pageant
Michael
coach.
Caine was the pageant consultant. When they were going in, and Benjamin Bratt showed his FBI badge, and then Michael Caine showed his little compact to get in.
It's like, I'm with
I
him.
feel like I should just make a list of things to watch after this panel because
It's great.
okay. Someone told me that in JSK Agenda that Jason Jr. you created a like Pokemon Go like game for the characters to play, and first of all, I wanted to ask like how you even came up with that, like how that developed, and like for everyone else, if you could like, it doesn't have to be a game specifically, but like would you or what would you write if you could do something like this, just like with any property, anything really? There are no limits. Just have your creativity just drive you wild. Like, what would you do?
So in JSK Agenda, I created a mobile app called Digimals, which is a lot like Pokemon Go, like you said. And I did that because one, Pokemon has such a huge queer following, and it's been such a big part of my life. I played the very original version when it first came out. I got the red version on my Game Boy, and
Ooh,
Bulbasaur was my
ooh.
very first Pokemon. And I loved every last second of it. And then growing up and being an adult and having Pokemon Go come out and seeing all these other adult queer people be really excited about it and having that same just joy that we get to have these adventures, and now we can all do it together and as a community. So one of the vibes I want to have in Jay's Gay Agenda is a close-knit queer community and being able to bring the gamers in on that too. But I didn't specifically use Pokemon because another thing about Pokemon fandom is we all have really intense feelings about specific Pokemon and what they mean to us and who's the best and X, Y, and Z. So I wanted to create sort of a spoof version of that where everyone can see, oh, this is a wink to us Pokemon players, but without getting all of our emotions into it. And instead we could just kind of like laugh at it. So I create a Pokemon called Quackcroak, which I want people to envision like a duck frog, or Italia bear, which is like this leaf-covered, flower-covered bear, where everyone could be like, oh yeah, I can think of all these Pokemon that are inspired by things like this, and just have a good laugh and like a wink at all those Pokemon players.
I love it. So he basically distilled it down to its essence.
Exactly. Yeah. And it allows for one of Jay's love interests to release his signature move, which is the Digihips, which is this hip sway Albert does for good luck when he's playing the game. And it's one of my absolute favorite things about Albert.
Oh, I love it.
Wait, what do you mean one of? How many love interests does Jay have?
As Jay needs.
As many as Jay needs. This is his sexual awakening. And so there's two main guys that he really goes after. One, he's getting all kinds of feels for, which are like the heart feels, and he's very sexually attracted to him and seeing him more as a full-on relationship person. But Jay is also exploring just his sexual side. And I'm trying to be sex positive here and showing like sex doesn't have to necessarily be about love. It can be about exploring yourself and exploring human bodies, as long as everything is safe and consensual. Being able to connect with another person through sex and not necessarily through your heart is still a really magical experience.
I've read about it in books.
For anyone else, if you could do something like Jason June did, what would you do? What would you create?
I was just thinking that I have no idea, and then I remember that I legitimately invented a whole fake boy band for my next novel, as well as like other celebrities that they were interacting with. And I was like, oh, I guess maybe I did do that. But yeah, my 2022 book is about an out gay boy who's the only out gay boy in a Canadian boy band. And like I literally made like a backlist for them and like snippets of lyrics for them. Wrote like fake reviews from Rolling Stone, Analog. Like I had to make fake names for like Rolling Stone and BuzzFeed and all these like news outlets. It ended up being really fun to spoof a lot of things, including ill thought out medium think pieces, of which there are several. That was really fun. I call it mode.com as making fun of medium, mean, and mode. So there's a lot of layers to the pun there. It's great. I love it.
I love math humor.
Yeah,
it's so like clever, and like when you have to like take the work to like when you're making like a fictional fandom, you're like, okay, what does the media look like, and then what does the community that has sprung up around the media look like, and how do people interact with it? Because there's so many like different nuances and like weird like in the Sidekick Squad, there's like the like Captain Orion fan clubs, so like people who trade like the comic books, and there's also like people who are like super into the show, like Jess's favorite. Like I totally I don't even remember the name of them. Oh, it's called the Vindicated series, but it's a clear like she's just like there's no plot. It's just attractive people and explosions and doing like ridiculous things. But it also stems from my love of the Fast and Furious. Yes, because it's so good. And it's like, how did this series that was supposed to be about like cars and like shenanigans somehow turn into this like heartfelt family and like with like positive like amazing characters, color, and it's like I don't care if they keep it going forever. They can go to space. They can start like yeah.
I mean, they might go to space the next one, so who knows?
Is the band called My Boyfriend Who Lives in Canada?
No, the band is called Kiss and Tell.
Oh,
I like that.
There has to be a trope at some point where someone's like, hey, like they're in Canada, they're real, they're totally real.
I don't know how many people know Avenue Q and would get the joke.
Everybody who's ever you've only read Kingdom Hearts fan fiction, and it's only like a Akuroku ship. They have a drip. They have one.
Which ones? Wait, Akuroku ship?
Oh, Axel and Roxas.
Oh, I've never heard it pronounced that way before. Interesting. Anyway, sorry, I just immediately flashed back to my days in the Kingdom Hearts online text-based RPG. Played out over Gaia Online when I wish I played an original character from Disney's The Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Oh!
Who hooked up with Darkwing Duck and Launchpad McQuack to go have adventures. It was those were halcyon days. Halcyon? I don't know how the C in that word is pronounced. I've only read it aloud. No, I've only read it in books, not aloud. I'm sure someone will correct me eventually.
I think you got it.
Someone will tweet at me when this goes up and be like, Adib, it's pronounced X. And I was like, great. I've already forgotten. No, actually, no, that's going to bother me if I don't look it up.
Oh, no. This is why you're such a nerd, I swear.
That audience is Geek Culture.
Okay, it is halcyon, which is how I said the first time. So I guessed right.
Oh, I just realized what word you were thinking. I was like, I didn't know how this was pronounced either. And it didn't make sense to me until I saw it typed.
Yes. Sorry. Anyway, that was a rabbit hole that we all just went down.
Fell down.
Tripped and fell on our face.
I guess I am a lot like everyone else. For like my next book, I invented an entire comic book series with 2 main characters who everyone is shipping, but no one it's not confirmed by the creator, so everyone's like, I know it's real, when are you gonna tell this kind of thing, which is kind of me, just like a throwback to all the fandoms I've been in where we're all just like, just say it already. So I did that in the series, and thanks to Adib, not only did I create this whole comic book series with the whole Found Family team, but then Adib was like, but what if you created like your own like geek forum and your own like Reddit kind of series? And so like there's all these other different things in there now also, where like you have reviews from people and like post on like forums and like tweets and stuff, all I made for it. And then I said, well, why not up in another one and have the main character's best friend be a gamer and create a whole game series? So it's just so much. I don't think for any of my books I want to create anything else. That's my answer. No pop culture. I'm done with you. But it was a lot of fun.
That's how you know you're a writer. Because
you've begun meta writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I would do something like Card Captor, like Sakura, or like Yu-Gi-Oh, but like with horror stuff. So like your card is you're playing Michael Myers. He's like, I don't know how it would work, but that's kind of what I would do.
Like Yu-Gi-Oh meets Undertale. Actually, that's a really good pitch. Someone should write that. You should write that now.
Get it on Realm.
Honestly, when someone mentioned Kingdom Hearts, I was just like, I hope someone mentions like some kind of Kingdom Hearts thing, but like from the perspective of some kind of Heartless, because I would just fucking adore that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So like, yeah, if anyone's watching this like later on YouTube, just like, invent something, I will literally eat it up.
The good news about any Kingdom Hearts, if you ever do get to write Kingdom Hearts, and for like at one point Square Enix like opened up and like partnered with Penguin Random House to produce some stuff, and I immediately emailed my agent. I was like, Molly, if they need someone to write Kingdom Hearts or Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy 4 through 8, please put me in there. And then Molly's like, I think they're just doing manga translations, and I was like, Rats. All of which to say, if you ever do have to write a Kingdom Hearts book, it's really easy. All you have to do is make an original character, and then at the end, it turns out it's also Sora. Also, spoiler alert, sorry. If you don't know that everyone in Kingdom Hearts is Sora, I don't know. It's too late now.
I mean,
I didn't know that.
You've had years to find this out. Sorry,
Okay.
yes, apologies to everyone I just spoiled.
I mean, that's literally the entire base of Kingdom Hearts. That Sora is everything, and everything is Sora.
It's literally the
Sora,
spaceman meme of like,
awesome.
wait, it's all Sora, and then the other spaceman is behind him with a gun and says, "Always has been."
Pretty much.
I've only ever read Kingdom Hearts through fan fiction, so
You've never played them?
no, because I read. I was like when I was 13 and I found fanfiction.net. And then I found
Terrifying place. AO3 is so much better.
fiction, and I was like, okay, I kind of know what the game is, and mostly I've read a lot of like Final Fantasy crossovers with Kingdom Hearts, so I never actually played the game. I feel like I knew everything.
You have to go find a PlayStation 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 probably, and then play the games.
Can you just
my advice: get a PS4 or 5, because at this point, Square Enix just released like 2 or 3 like compilation sets that I have. I made it like halfway, and then I just got tired because I keep getting frustrated.
Was it trying to beat Riku in the race to name the ship?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, I think I saved right before that race, and I think I did it about 30 times before I finally won, and then found out the only prize was getting to pick the name of your ship. And I was like, oh, well, I could have been studying for my
we
finals
have to
right
move
now.
to the next question.
I'm sorry, yes, if you get me stuck on Kingdom Hearts, we will not escape.
Okay, so what is something from Geek Culture that feels extremely queer but technically isn't? Like for me, it's Poe and Finn from the last Star Wars trilogy, because let's be real, the homo energy coming from that was just too much.
He wore his jacket, and he said, "Keep the jacket. It looks better on you." That's just like, if that's not boyfriend energy, I don't know what is.
Yes.
But yeah, that's me. What is it for you guys?
I'm going to be a contrarian and say I'm at the point in my life where I demand textual queerness, or I will just set the media down. I will just set the media down and go find something that does give me what I want. I don't think there's just so much great queer media out there that I'm like, I'm not going to sit around here and get baited for 15 seasons, like all these, like, apologies in advance, but all these poor Supernatural fans, I'm like, I could have predicted this for you 10 seasons ago that you were going to be disappointed, but you hung around, and it's like, there's like, go watch something with gays in it instead. That's where I'm at with my life. But also, like, love to everyone who does like that kind of stuff. For me, it doesn't bring me any joy. It just brings me sadness.
Have you heard of like the concept of like, oh, this has queer people in it? It's a media like is about queer people, but it feels like it's written for straight people. And then, or the opposite, this is about straight people, but it feels like it's written for queer people. And like for me, like Mamma Mia is one of those. I'm like, oh, it's about, the characters, but it's so much fun, and it's like it's just a blast. And there's ABBA.
I love ABBA.
There's a lot of like joy in it and wholesomeness, and then when I think back on media that like wasn't inherently queer, when I was a kid I read like a ton of Babysitter's Club books, and I was just like, this is so great, because it's like learning much later that like, oh, Anna Martin was queer and that she wrote this series, and it's about all of these like amazing people, and like seeing the reboot now, if you haven't had a chance to watch the reboot on Netflix, it's super adorable and super cute, and they do a lot of like it feels so relevant to our time, where they introduce like queer characters and kids, and like there's a whole like super affirming like there's like a trans one of the kids that they babysit is trans, and like it just warms my heart so much, and it feels like, when people are like, I'm gonna reboot this, and now it's but it feels very relevant to like the core characters are the same, like they all like care about the same passions, but then you bring it to like today's environment, and we're like, oh yeah, I always like this person has such like this energy that feels and I don't know what it is about like the question is very interesting, Greg, and I don't think the question is about queer baiting. It's about what piece of media or character resonated with you, and whether textually that person was or wasn't like that person or that character or concept remained important to you. Yeah, because we vibed with a lot of like, we talked about like superheroes in the context of like this, just the concept of having a hero, having secret identity felt super queer to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One character that I think is very gay but didn't get the opportunity to express that is Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. Ooh. He is a particular persnickety elder gay man in a little crab's body, and he never got to share that with the world.
Why am I
He
realizing
the
this now that you
whole
said
number.
it?
He didn't get to be that extra, but he did.
But he did. He chose to just really ramp it up and shoot, sea confetti everywhere, specifically for Ariel.
Do you ever think about him contributing to the plastics in the ocean problem, though?
I have not until now. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is all because of Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
Every single Broadway show that he's put on, it's like, Ariel, it's time to teach you this life lesson. All right, now I got to get my backup dancers ready. I got to have the chorus line.
What was his budget like? It's ridiculous.
I mean, clearly Sebastian runs everything.
He works directly for royalty, so I don't think he really had like a max budget.
Right.
Exactly.
Sooner or later, the peasants are going to revolt, though, if all of their tax monies keep going to elaborate productions for one person's benefits.
Yes, Ariel is Marie Antoinette.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But she's a lamb now, so it's fine. So recently, I don't know if you guys have heard, but like Marvel announced like they're coming out with a new queer superhero for Pride Month, and like they also announced a while back that like Captain America is a queer team now, which I'm kind of excited about because like I fucking love Captain America, and like so like they're kind of like slow but good process like people are, especially these huge companies are making to make their I want to say their stuff more queer friendly. And what do you guys think is like a good way to like kind of speed up this process? Because like I feel like it's taken a long time and it's still like a little slow.
Let me tell you from an agent's perspective, baby, it's these white jokers up in with all the purse strings up in here who can't conceive of anything other than their little Hamptons type of literary prestige. These I almost said motherfuckers. Oh, I said it.
You totally should have.
But that's really what it is. It's a lot of, I think a lot of people who control us, particularly within Hollywood and visual media, it's a lot controlled by people who aren't creatives and who follow like pipelines that have already made money as if it's going to continue to make money. And I feel like a lot of publishing is that way as well. I'm not trying to say that to be foreboding, but I just do feel like we're going to have a revolution.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. The way to speed it up is ultimately money talks. And the way we speed it up is by continuing to show support to properties that are doing it. And showing them that it's profitable, because that's how capitalism works.
Yeah. And continuing to be like, hey, like I'm rallying behind the show, this character, I really love the storyline. And I think that, the access of like people being loud in the past 5-10 years have been like, we're tired of crumbs. We're tired of not having the media they want. And I think it is a shift that is starting to change where people are like, hey, this movie was a blockbuster. Who would have thought that someone would have wanted to watch this movie or watch this entire show? And the thing is that like people have been waiting for these books, these movies, these TV shows. And it is part of like having those gatekeepers both like taking a chance and also like, there has to be, I hate to say that there has to be like a perfect storm of events that makes something possible, but like the whole, like, I'm just going to use like Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians as an example. 2 films that came out that in a similar time period where suddenly people are like, oh my God, these got like box office, like smash hits. And really what people were like, oh, there's a lot of people paying attention to this. Why were these films so popular? And it was hard because there's so much pressure riding on like this film has to be the best of the best. If it doesn't do well, then it's indicative of like, well, that, you know, that type of media, that type of show, that type of lead, that type of story isn't going to do well, which sucks because we deserve to have the same amount of like breadth and genre and diversity. Like we should be able to have like movies that are terrible and books that are terrible, and like have like mediocre characters and characters that are flawed and characters that suck. But somehow when there is like the only one character on this one show, then they have to be perfect. Then they can't die because they're the only one. And so once we get like, I don't know what the answer is, like, how do we speed this up? But I think there's room for, you know, like a lot of big companies who are just like, oh, here's this new character that is like this new queer character with a new backstory, new storyline, but also taking the time to like, oh, did you know this beloved character also from this beloved franchise is also queer? And like having a combination of like, we're gonna try all these different angles, and also like there's room for like, you know, that little moment in the new Star Trek reboot where Sulu, like you just see him like with his husband and their child. I'm like, oh, that's really sweet, that's really lovely. And it's a very small moment. And so people are like, is that representation? Like, okay, there's a moment in the last Star Wars movie where you see vaguely in the background 2 girls kiss. We're like, okay, is that a moment? But it's one of those like tide turning things where it's like, you know, people like companies, random capitalist corporations at Pride tweeting like, we support, you know, Happy Pride Month. I'm like, that's it. Does it mean anything? But also it shows that like, hey, people are more willing to support us rather than like they're willing to risk like their entire like consumer base rather than alienate us, because then it's one of those like small steps that I think is positive, and I hope that people continue to like demand that cake, y'all. just don't just settle for the crumbs.
Yeah, and the good thing is that queer creators are here. So I think that's the great thing. It's like a lot of like, and I think that this is a great array of like how, you know, we have had changes within the industry and with the titles that have been published within this group right here, right? With all the different types of books that all these authors have written. So the great thing is that there's a wealth of queer creators, which means that there's a wealth of material to be produced. And I think that's the hopeful.
Yes, take a chance. I was watching an adaptation of everyone's work. I'm excited for everyone. Everyone submit their manuscripts to Kiki, and
I think another thing to look at is for those people in charge to stop trying to make media in any form or literature palpable to like the audience that Kiki was talking about, where it is strictly like, we can make this, but it is going to be something that this upper middle class or rich white audience is going to love. Instead of going the other route and saying, well, no, we don't have to go this route in order to you know, secure the bag or whatever. We can, you know, it, like CD said, it's like movies like Black Panther and Crazy Rich Asians and all those other different movies. They did so well because there's an audience that's been hungry for it so long that they go to it multiple times and they bring in their entire family and friends and whatnot. And it just shows the power that one group or that starved audience will go to show their love for, we want more of this. And when they do that, then everyone else is like, well, what the hell is this about? I want to know. And so you're bringing in everyone else too. So you have to stop. Those people have to stop trying to center this one group of people as the main, you know, supplier of fandom and viewership and whatnot, and start focusing on those other groups, the marginalized communities, the queer communities that can let us be queer. Do not make our story that something is palpable and sweet and wonderful for this particular audience. Because then that's all you get is the same result. And eventually it falls off. We are tired of the mediocre, you know, Archie of Riverdales and stuff like that. Like, give us the stories we want.
Julian, you're going too far.
Oh no.
Okay.
We will go there, Kiki.
Okay, we can go there.
Just
but
because
I feel
someone
like
has
we have to-
abs doesn't mean they're interesting.
True. Okay, so like I feel like this is a discussion that we should have, but like at another time because I think this could go on forever. I feel like so. Like we've been talking a lot about like geek culture for almost an hour now, but would you guys like be cool if we just switched like queer joy? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
We're turned on.
Like
Go
I
ahead.
am like a fairly new avid reader. I started my like reading journey in 2019, but like I made it my personal goal or business, whatever, to just read primarily queer stories and a lot of own voice stories because like these are the stories that I wish I could have like had growing up to really like get into myself before like okay, I'm not gonna like get into all that, but like, yeah, just like discover myself better. And like I know that a lot of other people feel this way. And is this something that like you take into consideration when writing that like people can like see themselves and discover themselves more within your characters and the world you create?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like in a world that has so much pain and trauma and a society that is constantly telling you to take up less space, that tells you that we don't see you, that you aren't valuable enough to have your stories be witnessed, that like any affirmation, any celebration of the self and your identity is powerful. Like being able to be like, hey, I'm having a great time and I'm having this book is just, it's queer and it's full of adventure and joy and love and like it feels revolutionary to me from in a stance of like, hey, like getting to say like, hey, I deserve this, I deserve to be happy, and that feels like such a baseline level. But there are so many people that have been denied that I want this theme to be a core in people's work, because it is not often seen. Like I don't want to be here just for people to be like, oh look, there's a very difficult story and this is what we can learn from it. And like I don't want to be like, if the only time I see a character like myself on TV is like, oh, that person was there for to be set dressing for the straight character to experience empathy, or like to be a lesson to be learned. And like we deserve to be the center of our own narratives. We deserve to define our stories and the ways and the paths, many paths that we have. And there's pain in that, and there's the regular ins and outs of living and learning who you are. But being able to focus on joy is a privilege that many people don't even think about. And so for a queer person to think about it, it's a sense of like reclaiming your power.
I mean, queer joy is my brand. it's what I will always write. I'm sorry if that pigeonholes me in some way, but it's something I always write. But I love that, like CB said, we can write these stories that are complex, that deal with the different, the pains and the trauma, or the different experiences that aren't often talked about. And at the end, or at the center of it, is still us experiencing joy. It is still us coming out the other side feeling like we've won. And I think that's it's important to give queer readers, is that feeling that you get to walk away knowing you won. Not that they won or they changed you or they made you better. You did this for yourself. Because I think a lot of what they're shown in the world is that is not what is going to happen. That's not what they're going to experience. They need to have that confidence that, no, I do get to write my own narrative. You don't get to control this. I'm sorry. This is not written in third person, and I am not an extra in your scene here. This is my story. So, I mean, I feel like that's what I want my readers to take away from it, is that you get to control your destiny. You get to claim your victory.
100%. It's just like, it's time for queer joy. It's like the most magical aspects about me are from my queerness and my queer family, and I want teen readers to know through all of our books and through all the queer creators that are out there that this is going to be my whole word lately is magic. This is going to be a time of magic. And that's not to say that there won't be hardships in the world, but I think the thing that makes me get up every morning is the magic in my life, and wanting to help share that and show teen readers who are on the cusp of discovering themselves, that I know it can be an anxious moment, and I know sometimes you're not in the right space where it's safe to come out yet, but once you're finally in that space, it is going to be so full of magic and joy and love. And I can't wait for you to get there. And I'm going to write stories that will help you, will help tide you over until you can get there and make your own magic.
Oh, Dean.
I think this is going to sound terrible. I'm a very selfish writer, and so I don't. When I'm writing, I only really think about what I like, either what's bringing me joy, or depending on where I'm at in my life, like what's making me unhappy. And sometimes writing is a way of me exercising my demons, and I do think I'm very selfish about that. But I do start thinking more about readers and about how people are going to interact with it a lot more when I'm editing things. And that's mostly because I have a really good agent and really good editor that will be like, this seems a little like maybe sad, or like, how would you feel if someone got a tattoo of this line on their arm? And I'm like, you're right, that's a little dark. Why don't we finesse this a little? Although that's actually something that Molly, my agent, said, is that Laurie House Anderson has, like she heard Laurie House Anderson talk before about, she had this one line that I think it was in Winter Girls, a character talked about like something really hard she went through dealing with like an eating disorder. And, you know, in the book, it's about like deconstructing it and talking about how like this is a problematic line of thought. But then other people will like quote it completely out of context as like somehow exalting eating disorders. And so I think a lot about that, of, you know, how is someone who doesn't know me and has never met me, how can they take this line, and then could it be twisted into something that's like the opposite of what it is? And to some extent, like literally everything can, but I feel like part of our responsibility is just to kind of file off as many of those rough edges as we can and know that we're all human and imperfect, but just kind of do our best. Sorry, this one really dark. I apologize. We're supposed to be talking about joy. I love it.
It is one of the things that I find, like the first draft, you know, you write out the feelings that you didn't know that you had yet. And then you're like, oh, that is what I was going through, but is it what the characters are going through, and is it necessary for their journey? And like having that bleed from your experiences into your characters is what makes them human. But then you take that second draft, that time when you're like, oh, does it work for the story, and what was I trying to say before, and is that what I want to say now?
Yeah, and I feel like as an agent, I might
Are you saying there has to be a second draft?
Oh, you.
And I think, like, as an agent, I even scale back like what the definition of queer joy is for me as an agent, and like how I think of readers, because I think that, like, for me, queer joy is just existing as a queer person, right, without any type of restrictions. So I think that there is so important to be able to show queer characters who are messy and flawed, especially kids who have maybe, I don't know, like, I hate to put value on like good or bad, but like, you know, less goody two shoes type of, oh my God, see, even that I said, the way that I said that was kind of snarky, but like, you know, I think there's value in having like, queer characters, particularly young queer characters, who exhibit behaviors and feelings that are messy and not neat, and not, because I think we're, I don't know, the human complexity, right, of having all of these like kind of emotions and impulses and things, because I think that there is just value in having representation where we're acknowledging that, you know, having those doesn't make you a good or bad person. So that's kind of how I try to put in my little saucy sauce.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And as you said it, I was thinking like, you kind of hit the nail on the head, that I'm not writing queer joy, I'm writing queer liberation.
Oh,
yes.
Good snap.
Yes.
And I think
That's also important.
I think that's what so many of us are moving toward.
Right. And it doesn't look the same for everybody. Like for some people, it's like coming out and rainbows and parades. And for some people, it's like being able to contemplate, like, what is this identity mean? Just being like, I'm secure, spending time with my friends and my books or whatever my hobbies are. And so for some people, joy to them means like, I'm not going to come out to my family because it's not safe, or I'm going to wait until it's the best time for me. And getting to experience that as like, existing and finding comfort in existence, I think is the common thread, because there are so many authors and people, and I'm very careful about people who are like, oh, coming out stories are over. I'm like, no, they're not. And it is an experience that people go through that can be painful, that can be sad, that can be joyful and wonderful, but it's going to be different for everyone. And we haven't had time for everyone to get to explore all of these stories and to explore like there should be room for every type of story. Like I want to walk into a library, bookstore, and be like, you know what I'm feeling right now? I want to feel like this particular mood and be able to find a book that will bring me that feeling.
It's funny because coming out is also something that we do over and over and over and over.
Like it's not like a very neat package like the Hollywood wants to be like, all right, you've had this coming of age experience, you've done the thing. I'm like, no, you have to think about it all the time. Like your Uber driver says something to you and you're like, do I feel safe saying this? And random people who are like making assumptions about you, and then you could be that person, be like, oh no, actually my partner and I are like, or like, actually like we make these decisions all the time on a basis of like our comfort level and our society level, and then there's like, is it worth it for this random person who doesn't know me? And then sometimes you think about like, oh, it is, because like I get a little thrill of joy of like the random cashier at the coffee shop is like, oh, my wife loves this color, and I'm like, oh, you have a wife, that's so cute, that's wonderful, like I don't know you, but that's a beautiful fact that I just learned about you.
Yeah, it truly is. Those little moments of connection are ineffable and wonderful. It's like an unclenching of the shoulders.
Yes. Or like sometimes it's like, oh, like you like lock eyes with someone and then you know that they're in a family. So you also want to like give little cues like, oh yeah, like I'm also, and then you both can like vibe on like
yes.
That's why I wear my L word hat literally everywhere in public. I'm like,
oh, that's excellent. If I was like good at painting my nails, I would like always have my nails painted because I feel like that's a really good like symbol. I just trash my nails. Like manicures never survive. I'm just a disaster.
I mean, my one hand looks good. The other one always looks like a kindergarten project.
The non-dominant hand looks phenomenal.
Future panel idea. When this festival is in person, we'll have like a nail painting session.
Okay.
Yes.
It could be like a book speed dating.
Oh.
Someone has to paint their book cover on your fingernail. That's too extra. That's too extra.
Whoa.
That's like way too like it's too solid. You put glitter, like I'm like, wow, like I don't know if I'm talented enough to use the glitter.
All right. So this topic is a little controversial, I would say, but like a lot of people see like sex in books, especially like in YA and queer sex, especially as kind of like inappropriate or kind of like it's fetishization. And like Jason Jin, you mentioned that your book is very sex positive. Could you maybe elaborate on that and why you think it's important, and like where does everyone else stand on this, like the whole sex in YA issue?
Yeah, so it was really important to me to make Jay's Gay Agenda sex positive because that is such a key facet for so much of our queer awakening is our sexual awakening as well, and knowing that we are physically attracted to somebody that society says we should not be physically attracted to. And I think that society has had this habit of sending queer people in a whole shame spiral for their sexual desires, whereas straight people get to celebrate it. Like when I was in high school, American Pie was the big franchise, and my straight cis male counterparts could talk about how hard Stifler's mom made them like till the cows came home. And they would be literal cows because they lived in a farming community. So we got to talk about their sexuality constantly, all the time. But if I was to say, well, what about Uncle Jesse on Full House? He sure makes me hard. It would have like been record scratch. And I mean, at worst, it would have gotten beat up. At most, it would have just been like shunned. So I think that there's this really uneven footing about being able to talk about our sexual desires at the right place and time. I'm not just saying we should bring up sex at any moment, but queer kids need to be able to see their sexual fantasies as celebrated as their straight peers. So with Jay's Gay Agenda, I wanted it to be Jay's very honest about who he's attracted to and what it makes his body do and what other bodies he would like to see and what he would like to do with those bodies. Not in a way that it's writing erotica or being a turn on, because that's not what I'm doing here. I'm trying to show queer teen sex ready readers that there is nothing to be ashamed of, that you can embrace your sexuality, and what needs to be focused on is that things are safe and consensual, and it can be this amazing moment of discovery for you and for your partner or partners, and it can just be all about beauty and not about shame or making things dirty.
I love it. Also, sidebar, I love Jennifer Coolidge in all things. I'm taking the dog, dumbass.
Yeah.
Also, a great movie pairing, Miss Congeniality plus Legally Blonde together.
Yes.
Yep.
I love that, Jason June, especially that, like, what sex positivity to me includes, like, the portrayals of sex, the lack therefore of, and also acknowledging that having these conversations, having it be present, and letting queer creators, letting queer readers define what is important to them, and being able to choose to see how much. Because I love that, like, you know, my first YA book has, like, you know, a very frank conversation about condoms and safe sex. Because, like, the mom is like, oh my God, like, I'm going to give you all of these pamphlets. And the boys are, like, super embarrassed. And, like, then they have this conversation about, like, you know, and I, you know, love touching on issues of the, like just being aware of, like, of the shame that people expect to instill in you, and walking past that and being like, no, like, this is how I feel. And people, you know, you said it in a very lovely way. I also want to touch on, not just in YA, but in, like, children's media and, like, middle grade and younger and picture books, that, like, having queer content isn't necessarily sexual. And that is something that I have seen people label upon books that is sad for me to see, because they're like, oh, well, there's queer content in there, that means it's inappropriate for children. I'm like, but is it? Because you have cartoons where, like, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse are kissing, and, like, it's clear that they're, like, in a romantic relationship. It's clear that you show these relationships as existing as normal. And part of having like, these relationships be normalized in media is showing that, like, beyond the, you know, beyond sexuality, just the idea of normalizing it without, like, sexualizing it, without fetishizing it, is important. And showing that, like, that it is, you know, it is important and valid to have, like, these, like, queer, like, just, like, queer parents in a children's show, or, like, showing, like, people, it is normal to have crushes, and it is normal to have these, you know, physical feelings and romantic feelings. And it is also normal to not experience those things. And, you know, people figuring out if they're ace or demi, or not knowing where they are, that, like, there isn't really, like, my greatest fear is that a child who feels broken, who feels like, I don't have a place here because, you know, this piece of media or this book made me said a specific thing about, like, my lack of existence, and it feels very, very sure. Like, it breaks my heart to see, like, children's books that are, like, beautiful and positive get banned because they have queer content, or, like, this book is about, like, you know, a young trans boy, and it's, like, terrifying to me that, like, people are like, oh, that's about sex. I'm like, no, it's not. It's about this person's identity. And there's and that all, to me, all of that is in the layers of, like, sex positivity, about being positive, that, like, yes, talk about the sex, yes, talk about the physicality of it, yes, talk about the feelings, the emotions, the consent, and also when it is also not about sex too, because there's like that, like, people are very quick to be like, oh, it's queer, therefore it's sexual.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like important to even state out loud that there's no moral grade on nudity or sexuality or sexual acts between two consenting people. And I feel like I'm just going to say it in the US and in North America, we allow conservatism and parents to control a lot of what we allow in our media geared towards children and young people in a way that other countries, like in continents like for particular the UK, doesn't. So, for instance, Skins is a great example of what the difference is between how we tell stories about young people and teenagers. And that seems like an extreme example, but again, there's no value system on engaging in drinking the same way there's no value system on engaging in sex. And I think that when you don't have literature for young people that talks about sexuality and your relationship with your own body, I think that becomes very disarming and violent almost to kids who don't have language or access to think about, their sexuality in a way that is healthy and individual.
I agree. I think part of our job as creators of media for young people is to do the hard work of being uncomfortable ourselves so that young people don't have to be. I think of all the times when I was a kid and like I would get the awkward sex ed talk in like school or like from my parents, and then they'd be like, okay, well, come to me if you have any questions. And I'm like, I'm never going to come to you ever if I have a question. You need to sit down with me and tell me all the things that you think I am age appropriate, able to hear, and you need to just be embarrassed about it rather than making me be embarrassed because I'm a child and I don't have the emotional skill set to deal with that yet. And so I think it's crucial for us to be doing that. It's funny, I have been kind of in and around publishing long before I was actually published, mostly lurking on Twitter, the Terrible Bird app. And it's funny, like every October, kind of like clockwork, somehow or another, we get on like the whole, like, what is a clean book conversation comes up. It's like every October. And then every March, there's the why is gay sex dirty? It's like clockwork. You can set your watch by it. And I think it's our job to ignore that and rise above it and keep writing because, the people who read our books, people that we're writing our books for, and there are going to be lots of adults that read them as well. And like, I'm happy to take their dollars, but I do not care about them the way that I care about young people. And young people need to learn that it's okay to inhabit their bodies and like know how to take ownership of them. It's funny, both Darius books have chapter or chapters in which Darius talks about owning a penis, which half the people on the planet do. And like I've had some adult readers be like, oh, that was a really uncomfortable like scene. But then when I'll do school visits, like kids will come up to talk to me privately and be like, why did you write that? I'll be like, I don't know, penises are kind of funny. Half the people have them. And also, I think, being comfortable in owning your body and having control over it is a really crucial component of a consent-based culture. And if you own your own body, then you can then make the leap that other people own their bodies. And that's, you help teach consent. And so I think it's kind of essential for us to be doing that work because clearly most of the schools aren't able to because of terrible lawmakers. Sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, that's fine.
You said something.
Julie, are you good? Or do you have anything to add?
I'm good. No, I'm good.
Are you just still laughing because penises are funny?
No, I'm not. But now you're gonna make me.
Sorry, they are kind of funny looking.
Oh my gosh!
As a personal fan of them, I can also acknowledge that they're a little ridiculous.
That was not what I took away from Darius Adib. My goodness!
Oh my god!
How would you feel if someone got a tattoo of that line?
That's why I didn't put the line in the book. Maybe one day.
I think a lot of great stuff has already been said. I as a fan of all of these books, who's read all these books and have it's affected my own writing in that I have to own my own shame and these things that I grew up with that I was not supposed to talk about, that I was not supposed to ask other people about when it comes to my queerness. Reading these books has helped me to open up the door. It's like, okay, but they need to be talked about and they are necessary. To not include them is harmful more than it's helping, because where else, like Adib said, where else are they going to get? They're not going to get in schools, and if they do get in schools, it will be just a small portion of what they need. And I think that's why it's important to include these things, and it's also important to include them to show that it is okay once you know about these things to not go down a certain road. And it doesn't have to be a part of your identity just because it has been discussed. I think it's just all helping to further develop young readers. And I'm over the whole, like, I mean, I know there are people out there who are doing it for their own reasons, but I'm over us trying to make that the reason why we shouldn't talk about these things.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm just gonna quickly say, like, I didn't even understand that I was demisexual I'm 28 years old now. Damn near I was 28 years old because we live in such and it's interesting because we live in such a sex loud society, but it's specifically straight and specifically consumption, particularly of female, but like women. Yeah, and it's just so interesting to me because we literally have sex in so much media, but like even just trying to talk about it in a queer way, it has these things, and it's just like I feel so. I feel my heart goes out to people who are, asexual or on the spectrum of asexuality who can't find a language for themselves or I don't know, it's like I'm gonna stop talking because now I feel like I'm going to ramble, but that's basically, when we talk about sex, then we give people language and to think about what it what it would mean in their life.
Mm-hmm. And to come back to that, where people are like, I love that you said like giving them the language is like giving them tools to be like, oh, I didn't know that aromanticism was a thing. I didn't know that asexuality was a thing, or I could be demi or somewhere along the scale because people aren't talking about it, that it's not as visible as present because there's so much conversation about sex, or that a lot of that centers on like a very cis heteronormative experience. And to be able to say like, what does it feel like if you're queer and you're also experiencing this or not experiencing this? And what I love about like the works that I'm seeing today, that I'm seeing in this room, I'm saying room figuratively because we're not on the same room. Art is the nuance, the complication of just human identity, being able like what is normal, and there isn't an answer of like what is normal. Like that's my true fear. Like you open any 1978 sex ed books, like it is normal for all people to always do this, or like all people with penises are boys. And that's not a true statement. And it's having the broad the space for people to like see themselves in our works and the media continues to be important.
No one book can tell the entire queer experience.
Facts.
Exactly.
Okay, we unfortunately are kind of running out of time here. So I just have like one last question for all of you guys. I think it is like obviously very important for queer people to like see all of you out and proud doing your thing. And I just want to say or ask, like, what is like the one thing you've learned about yourself within your writing journey, and what advice, like what one piece of advice do you have for all the queer readers and potential writers out there?
For me, writing Jay's Gay Agenda was a really informative self-discovery through the character of Max, who is Jay's new best friend and is genderqueer and femme, and discovering that Max is the person I wish I had the strength to be when I was in high school, and getting to come into my own genderqueer self through Max's genderqueerness. And so I would say, I guess my piece of advice would be, when it comes to gender and sexuality, it's okay if you don't have yourself completely figured out yet. And just like Kiki was saying, like, I didn't discover my genderqueer identity until I was 32 years old. but I knew I was gay when I was like 13, and I knew I was queer when I was 3. So there's these whole decades long moments of just needing to reflect and reanalyze and come back to center, to figure out new puzzle pieces in the puzzle that is you. And as a writer, or new burgeoning writers or really experienced writers, I just want y'all to know it's okay if you don't have every single layer of yourself discovered yet, and be open to finding out new things about yourself, because you can find that one little piece that's been missing all along.
Well, Jason June stole the advice that I would also have given. No, it's great. I think it's something that I think a lot of queer writers come to find and feel to be true. Another piece of advice I do often give is, especially when I'm talking to young people, is just reminding them that their safety is more important than just about anything. And it's okay to remain closeted if you need to hide parts of who you are if it puts your safety at risk, because you're going to have the rest of your life to be out and proud if you want to. At least ideally. Hopefully you'll get to a point in your life where it's okay to be out and proud. I know, that's the world we're fighting for, is where everyone can be that. As far as things, I feel like I learned things about myself with every single book. And I feel like I learn more about myself from reading other people's books than I do from writing my own book. Like a book that I read back in 2018 and that I still often reflect on is Tessa Gratton's Strange Grace. And there's a character in it named Arthur, who's, for a number of complicated reasons, who was literally like raised as a girl for the first 7 years of his life until people found out that he was a boy. And he's like, oh, that's right, I am a boy. Why was I being raised as a girl? And it was complicated due to, magic and murder and sacrifice and all this. But it really brought up a lot of like memories from when I was really young and kind of grappling with my own definitions of gender and what being a boy meant and what being a girl meant or what being between them meant. And so it's something that, I don't know, it turned a key inside me and I was like, oh, I haven't thought about these experiences or these feelings in a long time. But that was like really powerful and still really kind of personal, and I'm still processing a lot of it, but like it was really good for me. Also, I love Strange Grace. Go to bookstore and buy it.
I feel like when I thought it's just like living is discovery and so is writing. So, right, you're always thinking. So I guess when I feel like I would just love to say that like feelings are gunky, right? Like there's a lot of examining that is hard to do that I feel like is similar to writing, where you're like sitting and you're just like, I can't even articulate what this is because it's gunky. My foot is getting stuck in it and and I feel like giving yourself like the safety to know that everything that there's writing that can be just for you, the way that exploring your feelings can be just for you, is okay.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There's so much good advice here. And I want to say that for me and for anyone out there, that you are always a work in progress. Like there is no final version of you that is the best version. Like that's going to be changing every single day. And your work is the same. Like your writing is the same. Like there's no point where we ever stop learning as a human to become a better human, to become a better writer, to become better at whatever you want to be better at. And also just time to like exist as a person is so important. Like you don't need to be productive every day. You don't need to be creative every day. And if it works for you to be like, hey, I need to take a break. I need to like read a book. I need to watch a TV show. I need to watch 12 seasons of a TV show. Like whatever helps you on your journey. That's part of your process, right? So remembering that like it is okay to be a mess. It's okay to be a work in progress and just keep trying your best. And you got this. And you're not alone.
Not alone at all.
Give us that juice, Julian. Give it.
I think so many great things were said and stolen from me that the only thing that I can add is kind of like what I just had said to the previous question, which is, as a queer person, you are never to be able to tell the ultimate queer experience. You're never going to be able to have something that is going to be perfectly, encapsulates your experience. Because I know for like my first two books as well, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hit this, I'm gonna hit this, it's gonna be like this. And it's like, no, it like Kiki said, it just got gunky. It just really just got real nasty. So I had to stop. And I think the important part is for you to focus on what it is that you want to tell in that moment. Because like CB said, you're ever evolving, your queer experience, your identity, the ways that you deal with things, language, it's ever evolving. So stop trying to tell that one great queer experience that everyone's going to relate to and tell your, you know what I'm saying, from the heart. And I think that's the best way to go about it. And I think sometimes it's messy and it's complicated and it is so freaking difficult. But if you really look back on it, it's probably a lot easier than you trying to write something that was perfectly poppable for everybody else, but not really authentic.
Right. That, I mean, I don't think I can say anything that's better than that, honestly. Now, so
Always remind people to be gay and do crimes.
And I just wanted to thank you guys so much for participating and like for having me here. It's been awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. It's been amazing.
Thank you for all your great questions and for wrangling us.
Yeah.
Yes,
sure it was
thank
a
you so
challenge.
much, Greg.
Honestly, it was my pleasure, really.
Yes.
Is there anywhere that like people can find your information or like your work? Like, just promote yourselves.
Fanfiction.net/
No, Quant, you have to keep going now. Reveal your secrets.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and recently TikTok. Hey, I'm up with the times at Hey Jason June. Hey, like, hey, not like what horses eat. And then Jason June, like me.
I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Though I mostly lurk on TikTok. I still haven't really found what I want to do on TikTok, but I'm at Adib Koram. Actually, I'm also on Tumblr, where I mostly just reblog Star Trek and the Untamed shitposts. I can't believe we went this whole panel and I didn't get to talk about the Untamed. This is an attack.
I can't believe you didn't bring it up.
I do a lot of Untamed shitposting.
There was a question about ships in here somewhere, but like we just got lost in time.
Oh, it's all good. But anyway, so I'm on Tumblr as well, just Adib Koram. I also have a website, adibkoram.com. It's really convenient to be named Adib Koram because it was easy to grab all of my digital spaces with my real name.
Unfortunately, I couldn't get my name anywhere except for Tumblr. So if you want to find me, go to julianwinters.com and it'll give you my Instagram, my Twitter, my Tumblr, and maybe one day a TikTok. Just y'all, I don't have the mental space to be creative anymore, but julianwinters.com, no www, just julianwinters.com, and you'll get all my places.
All right. And CB?
My website's cd-lee.com, and then I'm on Twitter and Instagram at cdlee_cdlee. And my newest novel, A Clash of Steel, is up for pre-order right now. And the 5th anniversary edition of Not Your Sidekick is also coming out in September. So there will be a lot of bonus goodies. And that can be ordered as well from interludepress.com.
You can find when I'm looking to write that. I lied. My nickname is Kiki, but my legal name is Kiana, Kiana. But it's KianaNguyen.com. And then I'm on Twitter just probably talking about my favorite ship in Terminator Dark Fate, which is the gayest movie ever. You know, the director's like, I wanted to make an unsexy action film. There was titties and a wife beater in them, baby. You didn't do what you thought you did. At Kiana New, which is the first 3 last letters of my last name on Twitter.
All right. Awesome. Again, thank you all so much for the amazing conversation we just had, and for everyone who's been watching this. So yeah, I've been Greg, and thank you all so much for joining us. And this has been this panel for Pride Book Fest 2021.
Wait, where can people find you?
Yeah.
What?
Where can people find
you?
you? Plug your YouTube channel, your Instagram. I want to find
I'm
you.
so sorry. My TikTok is actually just Greggy, so just and then Greggy with 3 G's. Yeah, 3. So the first and the second 2. My Instagram and my Twitter are both Greg's Library.
Yay!
Perfect.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Greg.
much.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my esteemed colleagues. Thank you to all of you watching out there on the
You're a
interwebs.
troll
Happy
right
Pride.
now. Are you trolling us?
What? No. I do esteem you very much. How dare you? All of my very valued workplace proximity acquaintances.